Often, it's what you can't see that will make you ill. It might be from contaminated water, or from an airborne disease, or perhaps from a cut you got from a rusty nail. However, one thing's for sure, getting sick is no fun. That's why that old saying, an ounce of prevention is worth a pound of cure, is true. And perhaps one of the best examples of this is with vaccines. Because of vaccines, millions of people worldwide and from all age groups are being protected against certain diseases. Diseases that can often ravage a person's health and in some cases even cause death. For infants, vaccines offer protection against diseases that include chickenpox, rubella, mumps, and pertussis, also known as whooping cough. For preteen girls around the ages of 11 and 12, there's the HPV vaccine, which protects against genital warts, along with an HPV-4 vaccine that has been developed for males ranging in ages from 9 to 26. There's even a shingles vaccine recommended for seniors 60 years and older. And although it might not totally prevent this painful and debilitating disease caused by the chickenpox virus, it has shown signs of reducing the severity and length of its effects. But what is a vaccine, and what are the differences between vaccination and immunization? Generally speaking, a vaccine is a substance that produces immunity from a disease. A vaccination is the administration of a substance by needle injection, by mouth, or by aerosol that produces immunity in the body against a disease. Immunization is the process by which a person or animal becomes protected from a disease. Along with vaccines, there are also some diseases that cause immunization after an individual recovers from the disease. The concept of infecting a person with a mild form of a disease to produce immunity, also known as inoculation or variolation, can be traced back to the 1100s. During that time, children and adults from such diverse places as China, Turkey, Africa, and Europe were being immunized against smallpox with dried scab material recovered from smallpox patients. But it wasn't until 1796 that British physician and scientist Edward Jenner developed an actual vaccine to combat smallpox, which in 18th century Europe killed 400,000 people annually and caused a third of the survivors to go blind. During the 20th century, numerous vaccines were developed, including two in 1914, one for typhoid and one for rabies, both licensed in the United States. In the 1950s, vaccines to combat tetanus and yellow fever were also licensed here. And in 1955, Dr. Jonas Salk pioneered the first vaccine to combat the dreaded disease of polio. It was considered a significant medical achievement since polio, a viral infection of the nervous system, left millions crippled, including former President Franklin Roosevelt. The 1970s saw the licensing of the first combined childhood vaccine of measles, mumps, and rubella, with varicella, the cause of chickenpox, being added to that in 2005. Thanks to the widespread use of vaccines, many diseases like smallpox have been practically eliminated, while others like polio and measles have been greatly reduced. A vaccine works by imitating an infection and developing an immunity to it. This imitation infection doesn't cause illness, but does cause the immune system to develop the same response as it would to a real infection. That's because vaccines introduce antigens into your body. An antigen is a protein unique to the type of virus or bacteria used to make a specific vaccine. Exposure to antigens cause you to produce antibodies that protect you from future infection. Today, there are 4 basic methods scientists use for producing vaccines when working with viruses and bacteria, also known as pathogens or germs. The first method is by changing the genes of a virus so that it will reproduce poorly. Known as cell culture adaptation, this process modifies a virus to grow in specialized cells cultivated in a lab instead of the cells in which it normally grows. Because viruses grown this way can still reproduce to some degree, they are often known as live, attenuated, or weakened viruses. This technique is commonly used in vaccines for measles, mumps, and rubella. The next method is to destroy the virus genes so that it can't reproduce at all. One way to do this is to kill or inactivate the virus by treating it with formaldehyde. This is how the polio vaccine is made, by permanently destroying the polio genes so that the virus can no longer replicate. The third way to make a vaccine is to use only a part of the virus or bacteria. Since the viral or bacterial genes are not present in the vaccine, the virus or bacteria can't reproduce. This is how the hepatitis B vaccine is made. The fourth way pertains to making vaccines from bacteria. Unlike viruses, some bacteria cause disease not by reproducing, but by making harmful proteins called toxins. Bacterial diseases caused by producing toxins include diphtheria, tetanus, and whooping cough. Once these viral and bacterial vaccines are produced, adjuvants, stabilizers, and preservatives are added. Adjuvants increase the immune response of the antigen. Stabilizers increase the vaccine storage life, and preservatives make possible the use of multi-dose vials. Over time, the immune response from some vaccines decreases, making it necessary to administer vaccine boosters. These boosters restore and lengthen the protective immune response against a specific germ. Generally, more boosters are needed for vaccines made from killed or inactivated pathogens compared to those made from partial, live, or weakened ones. Along with vaccine-induced immunity to diseases, there's also a passive immunity approach. Passive immunity is when someone is injected directly with large quantities of antibodies that are instantly ready to fight a specific virus or bacteria. Immunizing young children against disease is especially important since they're so vulnerable. Currently, the Center for Disease Control, or CDC, recommends that by age 6, a child should receive 49 doses of 14 vaccines, and by the age of 18, 69 doses of 16 vaccines. Yet despite the effectiveness and success of vaccines to immunize, eradicate, and prevent outbreaks of disease, some parents remain skeptical about vaccine safety. That's why it's important to know that vaccines go through meticulous safety testing prior to the Federal Drug Administration or FDA approval and are continually monitored to make sure that it's both safe to administer single and combined vaccines that work together to protect children. In January 2013, the Institute of Medicine published the most comprehensive study of the childhood vaccination schedule. It showed no evidence of major safety concerns regarding the CDC's advised timetable. Still, doubts linger with some parents concerned that the combined MMR vaccine for mumps, measles, and rubella has led to an increase in autism, a mental condition that makes it hard for children to communicate. That theory, based on a study put forth by a British physician in the late 1990s, has since been proven false. Clearly, nothing in medicine is 100% safe or effective, but serious vaccine side effects are very rare. Even those children who are allergic to eggs, which are typically used to make measles and flu vaccines, can still be immunized by slowly increasing the vaccine's dosage over time. And because the amount of egg protein is so small, doctors still recommend egg-allergic children keep current with the latest flu vaccinations. Genuine allergic concerns aside, when large groups of parents decide not to vaccinate their children, it not only puts their own kids in danger of contracting an unnecessary and sometimes deadly disease, it puts the general public at risk as well. That's because the vaccinated community helps to protect those who are not vaccinated by what's known as herd or community immunity. Typically, if less than 90% of children are immunized in a particular community, these low vaccination pockets create an environment where infectious diseases can take hold and spread. And those that are usually infected include babies too young to receive vaccines, unvaccinated children, and adults. Also vulnerable are pregnant women, the elderly, and individuals with weakened immune systems, like those with asthma, chronic illness, or are undergoing cancer treatment. A Colorado study found that children who were not vaccinated were 6 times more likely to be infected with whooping cough and 22 times more likely to be infected with measles compared to those who were vaccinated. In fact, in April of 2015, a measles outbreak linked to California's Disneyland spread to more than a half-dozen U.S. states, Mexico, and Canada. All told, 147 people in the U.S., including 131 in California, got sick during the outbreak. Many who fell ill were not vaccinated against measles, and thankfully no one died. A recent California whooping cough outbreak, the worst to sweep the state since 1947, wound up killing 10 children. So if you consider that vaccines annually prevent 33,000 deaths in the U.S. and between 2 and 3 million deaths worldwide, the risks of natural infection outweigh the risks of immunization. Thanks to advances in biotechnology and genetic engineering, new kinds of vaccines are being produced. For example, flu vaccines, which are made by growing viruses in eggs, can now be made by growing viruses in animal cells. This cell-based process means that if a new flu strain emerges and causes a pandemic or worldwide outbreak, producing large amounts of a vaccine wouldn't rely on the amount of available chicken eggs. Those with high cholesterol are also being targeted with a new vaccine that could provide an alternative to statins. The vaccine, which works by targeting a protein that controls cholesterol levels in the blood, has been shown to reduce these levels dramatically in mice and macaques. This suggests it could be an effective treatment in humans for reducing heart disease, often attributed to high cholesterol. Other vaccines being developed include one for the respiratory syncytial virus, the leading cause of hospitalization for U.S. children under the age of 1, as well as a more efficient and cost-effective vaccine to fight cholera, an intestinal disease that causes diarrhea. Vaccines are even being developed to help fight cancer. Based on recent discoveries on how our immune cells fight disease, vaccines are being made to stimulate and improve the ability of a patient's natural antibodies to fight cancer-infected cells. Pursuing a career in immunology could prove to be very challenging, yet also quite rewarding. You could work on vaccines for a wide variety of diseases, including encephalitis, varicella, hepatitis B, respiratory syncytial, influenza, and cancer. Some of the many professions include becoming a microbiologist, which is someone who studies bacteria, viruses, and other microorganisms. There are also opportunities as a biocontainment specialist, who, among other things, helps contain viruses in secure facilities. Or what about becoming an immunologist, where you research, study, and learn how to treat the various disease processes that involve the immune system? You might consider a career as a fluorescence microscopy technician, where you use a light microscope to study properties of organic or inorganic substances. Another option is a biomedical scientist who diagnoses diseases, or as a cell biologist, someone who studies cells. As the planet's population continues to grow and age, controlling the spread of disease is essential to our long-term survival. And although there are some differences on vaccine usage that should be respected, vaccines continue to prove that an ounce of prevention is in many cases more than a pound of cure, especially when it comes to saving lives.